Yes, indeed. It is that time of the week. It is Monday evening. It's 8 p.m. here in the Boyne Valley in Ireland. It is just after Summer Solstice. It's time for Live Irish Myths. This is episode number 283. I'm your host, Anthony Murphy. Welcome to the Mythical Ireland Library. This evening, we're talking about two things. I'm going to pay a short tribute to my late friend, Jack Roberts of the Stonelight team. And then we're going to return to the book that we've been reading on and off for months. That is A Social History of Ancient Ireland. And tonight we are talking about the Ordeals. Yes, curious aspect of Irish tradition. Sort of lost in the mists of time, but not quite, thanks to the wonderful work of Mr. Patrick Weston Joyce. Hope you're all in good form. Hope you enjoyed the summer solstice and the peak of the year. We are on St. John's Day. Yesterday, St. John's Eve, was the traditional lighting of the Tinna Knov, the bonfires, in celebration of the longest days of the year. Of course, the solstice was a little bit earlier than usual this year because of the leap year, occurring at 9 minutes to 9 p.m. last Thursday, the 20th of June, not the 21st, as it is usually celebrated on. And the days very, very, very gradually now beginning to turn, but you won't notice much of a shortening of the day in the Northern Hemisphere for at least a few weeks. And in fact, the sun only picks up speed in terms of its rising and setting positions at Lunasa in August. So we still have a lot of long summer days to enjoy. The last couple of days here in Ireland, specifically in the Boyne Valley, have been fabulous. Sunshine, warm temperatures, and a little bit of a breeze just to keep us cool. Temperatures hitting about 23 Celsius. Not sure what that is in Fahrenheit, but I can do a very quick Google. That's 73.5 degrees Fahrenheit. Yeah, so welcome everybody to the library, as I say. Hope you're all in good form. The first to say hello tonight is Lexi Erickson. What a surprise. I mean, what a pleasure. Elaine Dent-Lingenfelder, a little bit slow on the keyboard this evening. She's normally the first. And Lexi is saying hi to myself and the Tua, and to Tom and Barbara and Joe and all her friends. And indeed, of course, Lexi, you do indeed have many friends here in the Mythflix Tua, the Mythical Ireland community. Wayne Bird is also saying hello. Good evening, Anthony. Hello, everyone. Staying at Stromness, Orkney this week. Very little darkness. Seems to be more like twilight. Very unusual, but nice. Yeah. And the further north you are in terms of latitude, the more obvious, the more evident that is. That extended twilight in midsummer and that lack of full darkness at nighttime. Of course, those of you watching from the southern hemisphere, you're at winter solstice or just a little bit past it. And from this time onwards, your days are going to be gradually getting longer. Elaine Dent-Lingenfelder is joining us. She's saying it's a sizzling 97 Fahrenheit, which is 36 Celsius in Texas. Wow. I hope you're finding some way to keep cool, Elaine. When the temperatures get into the early 20s in Ireland, everybody starts complaining about how hot it is. And we just comparatively were very actually cool. Anne Scott Doherty says, greetings, everyone. Hello to you, Anne, and to Bill. Hope you're in good form. Anya Neil is saying, good evening, all. Anya, a very, very warm welcome to you. Hope you are in good form. Rex Fortenberry is saying, greetings, earthlings. Ready for some good mythflixing? Well, I'm glad. And I have a picture that you're in warm and balmy Louisiana, and you've got a cool drink at hand, and just relaxed, lounging back in the chair with the feet up, I hope. Nora Gaffney O'Connor says, G.E.F. Golair, Kane Cuya lovely weather today, fab, hope all well. Yes, indeed. I wonder, were you in the sea today, Nora, and what the temperatures of the water are like? Simon O'Tusafar is saying, good evening, Anthony, welcome to you. Simon, always a delight to give you a Cade Mila Fáilte to on Laurelin show to the library. Greet Anthony and friends. That is Helen Hirsch-Cheddar, who is one of our regulars, along with the aforementioned. Helen, always a delight to see you. Lily Shamble says, hi all. For once we have decent temperatures in the UK. 24 Celsius at 8 p.m. Wow. Yeah. If you could only just take that and bottle it, somehow, and pass it on. Mark Gordon is saying, good day from Iowa. A very good afternoon to you, Mark, where I think it's just after 3 p.m. Hope you're in good form. might be. Are you Mountain Time or Eastern? I'm not sure. Nora says, "Oh, Ordeals, fascinating and intriguing all at once." Well, I hope you agree. Or Burgess. Whose first name I just can never remember. Is saying hello from New York. A very good afternoon to you, and please prompt me with your first name. It will eventually sink in. I apologize. Leslie O'Neill is saying hi from sunny Bettystown. Not the first O'Neill to join us this evening. Always a pleasure to welcome the descendants of Niall of the Nine Hostages to the live streams. Leslie, I'm not sure if we've seen you before. If not, Tara's Jock, Fáilte, Sláinte, and all that. And if so, the same anyway. What a pleasure. Just out the road where the famous Tara brooch was found, Bettystown. Barbara Murphy, and again, always a pleasure to welcome a Murphy into the library. Hi all, I'll have to catch up later as I'm out at a birthday brunch. I may get on in the end. Well, enjoy that and say happy birthday to whoever is celebrating. Barbara, enjoy it, and we'll see you later. Joe Butler, Auntie Joe, is saying hello from Colorado. I hope the two are well. Well, from judging from the comments so far, it would seem that they are, and yeah, I'm in good fettle too. So hopefully, fingers crossed, a good episode ahead, and everybody will enjoy themselves. Brendan Byrne says, "Evening, you legends." I like that. We're all legends in our own right. Anne McCallum says, "Hello, Antone, and all the mighty Tua. As always, looking forward to today's episode and glad to be indoors. Hope everyone's in good form and keeping cool. For the past week, we've been living under a rare, dangerous weather event called a heat dome, which has triggered a continuous heat alert. Temperature 35 Celsius, but with humidity feels more like 45. Wow. Nights not much cooler, even multiple thunderstorms. Described as a massive high pressure system that lingers in place and has a high ceiling. The heat is trapped and the sun bakes it. Wow. Incredible how variable the weather conditions are from season to season in Ontario. Not that long since you were telling us there was still snow on the ground. Hope you stay cool, and you're always cool in my eyes anyway. Brax is sending us a green love heart. Hello to you watching on YouTube. Of course, any of you who are watching on YouTube, please do subscribe to the channel and ring the notification bell so you get notified of future live streams and video uploads. Siobhan Cayley, who's also watching on YouTube, says, "Giaguch made it on time." Yes, indeed you did. Just in time for a big welcome from myself and the Mythflix. Tua. Afternoon, Anthony says, "Adina Sparks and Artua. It's a warm 92 Fahrenheit with 30. How do I switch that around? Sorry. 30% humidity. 92 F to C is 33.3333 degrees, which is the highest temperature ever recorded in Ireland. And of course, Adina is watching from Albuquerque in New Mexico. Hope everyone's well. Well, so far, everybody seems to be in brilliant form. Central time in Iowa, tad after 2. Thank you for the correction, Elaine. Much appreciated. Don't forget, if it's warm where you are, this is not a Mythical Ireland bottle. It's a Star Wars bottle. It's water that's in it. Make sure to stay hydrated. Very important. Debbie Sheehy is saying, "Hi, Anthony and the two. Great to say good evening all from sunny Dublin. Having just moved back from Melbourne, I'm learning to adjust my perception of warm weather, as it's a scorcher in Dublin today by Irish standards, which would be considered a very mild summer weather in Melbourne. Great to be able to join live again, and a pleasure to welcome you, Debbie, in the same time zone. Not that that matters. It was always a pleasure to welcome you from the other side of the world. And yeah, good luck with the adjustment. That will probably take some time. Tom King on Gowa, the Smith of the Boyne Valley, is here. Welcome, Tom. Hello there, Anthony and the mighty Tua. It's a grand, warm evening in the Boyne Valley. Hope all fine in good fettle. Enjoy the story. Yes, indeed. And I hope you're busy hammering away on the forge, making some beautiful object. Bonnie Aguilar is saying hello from Milwaukee in Wisconsin. Good afternoon to you. Go to sneeze. Apologies. Yes, a very good afternoon to you, Bonnie. Welcome to the live stream. Hope you are in good form and ready for story time. Lots of conversation going on the stream, which is wonderful. Just a few reminders. Oh, it's warm, but that's a good thing, I think, given that it's not warm for most of the year in Ireland. Why should anybody complain? A reminder of the GoFundMe campaign to help offset some of the costs of the Fornox book. Thank you to everybody who's pledged so far. We're actually over 1/3 of the way towards the goal. I'm greatly appreciative to every one of you who has pledged towards helping. Anybody who donates €50 or more will be thanked in a very early page of the book. A special thank you to all of those who donate €50 or more to the cause. I've just shared the link again, the GoFundMe link, if you want to contribute. And it's just to help offset the costs of mainly photography that I've had to purchase from the National Museum and the National Monument Service. As you may know, my previous books, all 9 of them, featured my own photography, so it was never an issue. I never had to buy in photography. The other thing is it'll help offset some of the printing costs. So anyway, thank you very much from the bottom of my heart for that. A big sort of mover, as it were, today was the Mythical Ireland Curb 67 t-shirt, which features the Mythical Ireland logo, the new logo designed this year. That's that one, which I unveiled a few months back. And I pictured a tour client on one of my private tours today at Loughcrew, and he was wearing one of the Mythical Ireland t-shirts, and it looked fab. And I shared that, and loads of people have ordered it because they're kind of really impressed. They're saying, I'd love one of those. Now, we ordered one, and my good lady wife commandeered it, which is perfectly acceptable, and it looked fabulous on her too. Organic cotton available in various sizes and colors. It is a round neck. Coming soon is a V-neck version, and just keep tuned for further merchandise which will feature the Mythical Ireland branding. Richard Burgess, sorry Richard, yeah, I should remember that now. I remember that because Richard is my co-author on Island of the Setting Sun, my very good friend, the artist and co-author. So I'm just sharing the link to the t-shirt there on the Mythical Ireland shop. Don't forget, of course, that when you go onto the website, mythicalireland.com or mythicalireland.ie if you prefer, you can purchase books, which are all my books, and I will personally sign them to you when you order them. Limited edition photographic prints, the Curbs 67 t-shirt, hand-forged artworks from the forge of the aforementioned Tom King on Gowa, the calendar, and the gift card. Should I mention it? No, it's too early in the year. It's only the 24th of June. It's far too early to be talking about pre-ordering the Mythical Ireland 2025 calendar, isn't it? Yeah, it is, isn't it? No, it's not. It's never too early to pre-order the 2025 calendar. Yeah, so I am going to begin tonight. What time are we on? As you probably know, and I've shared quite a few posts since last Wednesday about this, but we lost, sadly, and this is the time of year when the sun shines directly in the window of the library here, directly onto the camera, for those few weeks of the year centered on the summer solstice. And I love the fact that I have to pull the blind down to keep the glare off, because it just reminds me we are in the middle of midsummer. But speaking of midsummer, hello Samantha Healy, very good evening to you, and happy St. John's Day and midsummer to you. Got the news in the middle of last week that my good friend, author, researcher, megalithic archaeoastronomy pioneer, Jack Roberts, had been taken seriously ill with a stroke. And not too much time had passed when we got the very sad news that he had in fact passed away. I last met Jack in person on the 12th of May at the Bealtaine Fire Festival at Ishnok. I was giving a talk in the speaker's tent about Newgrange and mythology, and Jack was speaking immediately after me, and he was in the audience at my talk. I mentioned him. I drew attention to the fact that he's a very important figure in the unraveling, or the, I suppose, investigation and interpretation of Irish megalithic sites and megalithic art and stone circles. And afterwards, we shook hands and exchanged warm, friendly words, as we always did. And for me, it was a delight to see him, because I understood that he had been somewhat unwell over the past couple of years. but he seemed to have bounced right back and was thoroughly engrossed and immersed in his research and his writing. I was at Loughcrew today on a private tour with a couple from the US. I won't mention names, but one of them is a fairly regular viewer here. And when we went down to the megalithic centre there, run by Niall and Sarah, always get a lovely welcome there, by the way. And there's a very small bookshop in the gift shop, and 4 out of the 7 books that were on display were by Jack Roberts. And it reminded me how prolific he's been in recent years. I suppose a more lengthy tribute is the one that was sent out yesterday to the email subscribers, the Mythical Ireland email subscribers. I will be adding that full tribute to the website in the coming days. But just in case you are interested in subscribing, and this isn't trying to advertise on the back of something, it's just mentioning it while I think of it, subscribe to the newsletter. Jack Roberts is a name that became familiar to me literally as soon as I began my researches into Neolithic astronomy, which began in January of 1999, over 25 years ago, when my good friend, well, we became good friends after we met, Richard Moore, came to me and said, I want to learn about astronomy, especially Neolithic astronomy, because I think there's more astronomy involved in those monuments than we're being told. And of course, I believed he was right. Having been an astronomer, an avid amateur astronomer since I was a child, since about 7 or 8 years old, I had a great passion for the night sky and the movements of the heavenly bodies and the constellations. And it was a natural thing for me to do. So sometime in 1999, maybe as late as 2000, but definitely no later than that, I got my hands on copies of Martin Brennan's books, The Boyne Valley Vision and The Stones of Time, which is basically a fairly an accurate or complete republishing of the 1983 title as it was originally published, The Stones of Time. Oh, sorry, The Stars and the Stones. So I'm very blessed and lucky to have original hardback copies of first editions of both of those, The Boyne Valley Vision by Martin Brennan and The Stars and the Stones, Ancient Art and Astronomy in Ireland, published in 1983 by Thames and Hudson. Now, if you go to the acknowledgements, which are very early on, just immediately after the contents, you'll see that Martin thanks a host of people, but the first among them is Jack Roberts. I am deeply indebted to my colleague Jack Roberts and to other members of the field research teams who helped me collect the essential data for this book. It was in the presence of Jack that Martin discovered the Cairn T at Loughcrew equinox sunrise alignment in 1980, and also in the winter of that year, the Douth southern chamber alignment towards the winter solstice sunset. 2 very major discoveries. I could talk at length, but I don't think this is the time or the place, but about the controversy around the work, especially the reaction among the archaeologists. But suffice it to say that the work, especially the Stars and the Stones, which was later, as I say, republished as The Stones of Time, and I have a copy of the republished version, which is a paperback, republished by Inner Traditions. Many people who are interested in Irish megalithic monuments know these books, especially The Stars and the Stones or The Stones of Time, intimately well, and are familiar with the names Martin Brennan, Jack Roberts, Toby Hall, Hank Harrison, and the others, including, by the way, Siobhan Heffernan, who is a regular, commenter and contributor on the Mythical Ireland community and on Facebook generally. It's been an honor and a privilege for me to have met all of those people. Martin Brennan left Ireland in the mid-1980s under a cloud, and his work had been very well received by the reading public, but had been castigated by some archaeologists and ignored by others. I got a crazy idea in 2009 to bring him back to Ireland to headline a conference in his honour called the Boyne Valley Revision. Managed successfully to bring him back from Mexico, where he was off the grid and had been all his life, had never owned a computer, had never owned a mobile or a cell phone or a smartphone, was difficult to contact and always had to contact him through an intermediary. And got him to Ireland. The conference happened, brought him to Newgrange. And that was when I first met Jack Roberts in person. And Jack was very grateful to me and to the others who were involved in bringing Martin back to Ireland, presented me with one of his lovely handmade jewellery items, which I believe might be Curbstone 67. I don't know where it is. I know it's in safekeeping. It's somewhere safe. I must dig it out and start to wear it in his honour as a tribute to Jack and our friendship. A few years later, I think 2013, Jack got in touch and he was looking for my address, and I gave it to him and he said, I'm going to send you a copy of my new book. I got a copy of that book. I must show that to you. Called The Sun Circles of Ireland, Illuminating the Stone Circles of Ancient Ireland, written and illustrated by Jack Roberts. Of course, Jack was quite a talented artist as well as a writer. And imagine my joy and surprise, to be honest, to find on the dedication page, the third page of the book, thanks to Anthony Murphy for starting the ball rolling. And I was miffed about this. I was quite mystified. And I reached out to Jack and I said, no, in fact, it's quite the opposite. You started the ball rolling. Your work with Martin Brennan and your Stonelight team, that was, by the way, an informal moniker, I believe. I don't think it was an official sort of minuted meetings sort of group. But that's what they call themselves, the Stonelight team. And I said to Jack, look, you started the ball rolling for all of us. I was greatly inspired by particularly that book, as I said, The Stars and the Stones by Martin and Jack and all of the others who had contributed. And he said, no, bringing back Martin and being together at Newgrange with the old team had reinvigorated Jack in some way, had spurred him to new researches and new writings. And he has produced a lot of, I believe, 5 books since 2013. He's been very, very busy. So I don't like to claim credit for that. I'd like to think that was just one of a number of factors that inspired him to return to the work that had been so important to him a generation earlier. We kept in sort of semi-regular contact. Jack was the sort of guy who didn't seem to really like email because he didn't seem to often use email, but we had phone calls. We had a Zoom call. He was here in my house, I think it was 2014 on Winter Solstice, and it was the 5th anniversary of the Boyne Valley Revision Conference. And we managed, believe it or not, somebody who was a friend of Martin Brennan in Mexico managed to get a computer with Skype on it in front of Martin. This was before Zoom was popular. And Martin Brennan was there, and I had Jack here in my house, but we kept it as a surprise. So Martin and me and Toby Hall came on a Skype call. Of course, Martin Brennan passed away, I believe it was the 1st or 2nd, I think it was the 1st of November last year, at the grand old age of 81. But Martin sat down at the computer and suddenly could see myself and Toby Hall and was just elated, and for a few minutes, the ruse was, it's just the 3 of us. We're going to have a little bit of crack and reminisce. And it was such an honor for me to be counted as a friend among these people who I consider to be giants. Now, all of them would have admitted they all had flaws. They all had personalities that were sort of, well, Jack and Martin and Hank Harrison, there were times when they could be sort of, narky, shall we say. Rightly so, some people would add, given the reaction to their work among the establishment archaeological community in Ireland, which seemed to have been a little bit maybe conservative-minded at the time. Anyway, there's Martin, full of the joys of life, so delighted to be reconnecting with friends. And I said, Martin, I have someone here for now. I have a video of this. I've never shared it publicly. And I don't know whether I should or not. I imagine I would like to seek the permission, at least of Jack's daughter and others, Toby, who's in the video. But I said, Martin, I have a friend here with me, and I vacated the chair, and Jack Roberts sat down right here. Now, the library was only a small shelf at the time. This is before the big library happened. And Jack sat down, and you could just see Martin. He just was so thrilled. And as Jack was, to be able to speak to Martin, because that was a rare, rare, rare pleasure. Martin only ever corresponded by handwritten letter using his beautiful cursive handwriting. He never used a typewriter, I don't believe. I believe everything he ever wrote was handwritten. He, as I said, didn't have a computer, didn't have a phone. Jack, belonging to that kind of generation, wasn't brilliantly au fait with the technology either. That did not prevent him from being a brilliant author, and especially a researcher. We shared the stage, the speaker stage at Ishnok in 2018, Jack and I. Jack was on immediately before me. And he ran over time. He was so engrossed in his subject that he just kept talking. And he was supposed to stop at an hour because I was supposed to be on immediately after him. And he went on for another 20 minutes. And one of the organizers had to go up to him and say, Jack, yeah, you're over time, I didn't mind. As far as I'm concerned, as I said, and I've probably said repeatedly, it was an honor to have gotten to know these people a generation after their discoveries. Remember that when their major discoveries happened in 1980, I was 6 years of age. This was long before, it was before my own interest in astronomy began, and it was a good while before my major interest in megalithic and mythological Ireland began. So to be counted among their friends was a wonderful thing. Jack, I was in much more regular contact than Martin because of Martin's situation in Mexico being totally off the grid. Sorry that I never got the opportunity to go and see Martin. Never visited Jack at home, funnily enough, although he was in my house several times. One thing that I really, really loved was co-hosting tours with international groups with myself and Jack as the leaders of the tour. What an honor to share that passion and that privilege with the great Jack Roberts. Having met him at Ishnok 6 or so weeks ago, the one regret that I have now is that I didn't ask for him to get into a photo. He was setting up for his talk, and immediately after mine, there were people waiting to talk to me and buy books and the whole lot. So we didn't get talking for very long. It was a minute-long conversation. And I regret that now. You just never know when it's going to be the last time. So that's poignant for me. I would love to have that photo. However, in the wake of Jack's passing, some friends who were on some of the tours shared, well, there was one really photo that I really love of myself and Jack together at Nouth in, I believe that was 2013 or 2014. And the two of us have our arms around each other and we both look very happy. And, I just think that is the best way I can remember my friendship with Jack. And it's mostly from the point of view of admiration. I know that we had mutual admiration for each other. I know that he gave me high praise. He called me, by the way, the Druid of Drogheda. That was his title for me. I felt just totally ill at ease with that because I felt I was the apprentice and he was the Druid. Mainly, I suppose, from the point of view of the sadness of his passing, the one thing that we could be very joyous about is Jack's enormous legacy. That, for years and years, I've been writing about the key figures in the early antiquarian researches of Newgrange and the ancient monuments of Ireland. So we would be regularly hearing about Edward Lloyd and Charles Valency and R.A.S. McAllister and a host of names. And it is my firm conviction and belief that in decades to come, and possibly even in centuries to come, when we talk about, I'll be long gone, when people talk about the history of the exploration of Irish Neolithic and Bronze Age monuments, the name Jack Roberts will be very, very well known to scholars of the future, along with Martin Brennan. And I would like to take a moment to detach the two, because I know they were close friends and researchers. But as I said, since 2013, Jack has published an enormous body of his own work and his own drawings and artistry. A very, very talented and dedicated researcher whose particular areas of interest were the Bronze Age stone circles of Cork and Kerry, which he wrote quite a lot about, and of course the mysterious carved figures that we call the Sheila na Gigs of Ireland. And in those areas, I can tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that Jack's research was solid, fascinating, and well put together. He blows the likes of me out of the water. I would not be worthy of tying his shoelaces, to be quite honest with you. And that is the esteem with which I held him while he was here, and in which I will always hold him as long as I remember him. So farewell, Jack. Godspeed, or whatever they say. I don't know where you're gone. I have a very strong feeling from my own experiences in life and those of friends who've had near-death experiences that there is something beyond this life. I'd like to think that right now, up there or wherever, you and Martin especially are having long, long discussions about the many, many hours and months and years that you spent together in your discoveries and your researches. And Hank Harrison, who was quite a lively character, to say the least, maybe there also with his very raucous personality. And there's possibly a clashing of pint glasses against each other as you knock a few scoops back in honor of each other. God rest you. May the Tuatha De Danann bring you to that wonderful realm beyond this one. May your memory last as long as human beings speak about the wonderful megalithic heritage of Ireland. And I believe that without anybody having to do anything else from this point forward, that will naturally be the case, that your name will be long remembered as one of the great luminaries, and someone who had to go very much against the grain and who suffered the ignominy at times of castigation at the hands of scholars who I think should have known better, or worse still, total silence. And the names Brennan and Roberts were not much mentioned in the 25 years of my own researches, except for in the work in my work, where I always took steps to make sure that they were recognized for their discoveries. And maybe now there's an opportunity to rectify that and to put that to rights, that the names of Brennan and Roberts will be recalled at the very least in relation to the very significant discoveries that were made and the extraordinary and very worthy contribution that was made by those researchers to our understanding of the interpretation of megalithic art, which on the one hand, the archaeologists tell us is entirely abstract. And on the other, we have the likes of Roberts and Brennan telling us, no, in fact, there is a plausible interpretation of. Now, as with everything, these things aren't black and white. The truth is probably somewhere in the grey area in between. But I admired what they proposed. I'm a big proponent of the likes of the calendar stone at Knowth, the stone of the seven suns at Douth. In all my tours and in everything I've ever written and done about Douth, I always mention Brennan and Roberts. So I won't forget you very soon. I'm only sorry that you were taken quickly. In a good way, I'm glad that you didn't suffer. But I still think there was plenty of years and plenty of more books in you. And if there's anything I can do to take up the cudgel, to take up the baton, to pass that on, and to carry the torch into the future, then of course I will do my best. R.I.P. Rest in peace, the great late Jack Roberts, an Englishman who arrived into Ireland in the mid-70s and was completely swept off his feet by the place and basically never left. and dedicated much of his life since then, as I say, to researching and unraveling and revealing lots about the past. And I'll just, for a moment, just bow my head, and we'll have a moment of silence before I get too emotional. Godspeed. Just scrolling back through the comments. Johnny Wilson is saying it's to rain in Edinburgh, calling for rain next 2 days. Very sorry about Scotland's exit from the European Championships. Yeah, hopefully next time Ireland weren't even in the competition. So I don't think England will go too far, to be honest. I'm very uninspiring so far. I've been watching some of the football. Very impressed by the likes of Germany and Portugal and Austria. I thought were very entertaining. Anyway, not to get too distracted, I want to say hello to Ali from Tucson. Glad I was able to make this, and lovely to see you. Porrick Byrne is in Mount Mellick in County Laois. Hello, Porrick. Thank you for all the nice comments about Jack. Yeah, look, what can I say? We've lost a giant. We've lost a giant, thank you, Sue, and good to see you. And Caitlin and Lexi and Mavanwe. Susie C. Conroy is in the house. Hello, Susie. Welcome to the live stream. Archaeoastronomy Database, whose tie is in the house. It's been an amazing solstice watching the sun and moon. Yeah. And of course, me just having so much to do, didn't get much of a chance to get out to see sun. I did see the moon, and it was beautiful. Lovely idea, Nora, and thank you indeed for that. I'm sure Jack's many friends, colleagues, as it were, because fellow researchers and authors would be considered colleagues, and of course his family, who at this time are mourning him more acutely than any of us. Anyway, we are going to return to the social history of ancient Ireland. Tonight's topic is the Ordeal, and this is a subsection of the chapter that we've been reading on and off for a while called Religion, Learning and Art. And I think you'll find this really fascinating. It's an aspect of tradition that, as I said earlier on at the outset of the episode, has been sort of kind of almost forgotten. And it is thanks to the scholarship of the likes of P.W. Joyce that we're able to say anything about it. And of course, this book originally published in 1903 in 2 volumes. And we are so glad that this man dedicated so much of his time to putting all this down, as it were, on paper, without which we would be much poorer as a result. Anyway, this is an interesting chapter. I'm wondering now if I'm going to be able to get to read it all. I'll do my best just to keep going. It's 8:38 p.m. The live stream began at 8 o'clock. I know that most of you don't mind hanging on for more than an hour. I'm just conscious of the fact that when I give public talks in front of a live audience, once you go over the hour, people do start to kind of get a little bit tired. But that doesn't seem to be the case in this wonderful group, Yeah, and a few people lighting candles for Jack, which is fantastic. Yeah, a lovely idea. Look, all I can say is he won't be long forgotten. He's not a person whose work will lose its value. You can't take the major discoveries. Cairn T, I mean, you just have to look at the crowds have been going up there for years. Now, I know it's locked and not accessible in the interior to the public. All you have to do is go to Douth on winter solstice. There were 300 people who filed through Douth's southern chamber last solstice, myself included. And every equinox, twice a year for 3 days, crowds gather at Loughcrew for the sunrise. And we wouldn't be doing that if it wasn't for Jack Roberts and Martin Brennan. And it's lovely. It's a lovely tribute to them. And it'll be happening, I hope, for years, decades, and centuries to come. And everybody who gathers there, hopefully, will be talking. And hopefully, as time goes on, Martin and Jack in particular, and Toby and Hank and others will gain some sort of a mythological status, you know. The use of the ordeal for determining truth or falsehood, guilt or innocence, was developed from prehistoric times in Ireland, but the germs were, no doubt, brought hither by the earliest colonists. The Irish had their own ordeals, in which were some peculiarities not found among other nations of Europe. Most originated in pagan times, but as in other countries, the ordeal continued in use for many centuries after the general adoption of Christianity. And that is a recurring theme, you know. I forgot to ask, how are Wales doing in the European Championships? Are they in it? I'm sorry, I haven't seen them playing. Probably, Mavano is possibly saying best not to ask, Anthony. Okay. Oh, wow. Okay. Well, that's the qualifiers, obviously. They beat Finland, they beat Turkey, they drew with Armenia, they beat Croatia, they beat Latvia. They were beaten with Turkey away, but are they even in the? Sorry, I'm getting totally distracted. I'm sorry if I left Wales out. In the Book of Ballymote, there is a list and description of 12 different kinds of ordeal used by the ancient Irish, which has been referred to by Mr. William Hennessy in an interesting paper on Irish ordeals. And more lately, published and translated in full with the Irish text by Dr. Whitley Stokes, who we've mentioned on many live streams. In this, it is stated that the 12 ordeals were arranged and proclaimed by King Cormac MacArt, one of the most famous of the High Kings of Tara, in the 3rd century at the Feis, or Convention of Tara, that's the Feis Charu, which was held once every 3 years at Samhain. I'm not reading that, I'm just adding that information. All through this tract, an ordeal is called Fear Flaha, i.e., truth of sovereignty or kingdom. The following is the Ballymote list. 1, 2, 3, Moran's 3 collars, that's Morann. 4, Mochtas Adzi. 5, the lot casting of Shenacha. 6, the vessel of Badorn. 7, the 3 dark stones. 8, the cauldron of truth. 9, the old lot of Sen, son of Aige. 10, Luchta's iron. 11, waiting at an altar. And 12, Cormac's cup. Some of these are obviously legendary and fanciful, but that the greater number were in actual use is plain from the numerous references to them in the Brehon Laws and other ancient Irish writings. Moran's 3 collars were not much different from each other in their functions, and if they be regarded as one, which it is pretty certain they originally were, and if the 2 lot castings, numbers 5 and 9 above, are looked upon as modifications of a single one, this brings down to 12 Irish ordeals. This brings down the 12 Irish ordeals to 9, which was the usual number that prevailed all over Europe in the Middle Ages. It is curious that single combat or the duel is not included in the Irish technical list, though it prevailed as much in Ireland as elsewhere, as is shown at page 152 Supra. So we must have read that before on a much earlier episode. Actually, this chapter isn't as long as I was making out, so we may go on afterwards. Numbers 1, 2, and 3. The common version of the legend of Moran's collar is this: that the great Brehon or judge Moran, Morann, had a collar which, if placed round the neck of a judge, contracted on his throat if he delivered a false or unjust judgment, and continued to press more tightly, ever till he delivered a righteous one. And I know immediately what you're all thinking, the same thing I'm thinking, and not necessarily for the judiciary per se, although very controversial issues going on here in Ireland at the moment. Perhaps, yes, for some of the judiciary, but I won't comment on that. But certainly for some of the politicians. Placed on the neck of a witness. If he bore false testimony, it acted similarly until it forced him to acknowledge the truth. In the Ballymote list, it is stated that Moran had 3 collars, but as all were used for purposes similar to those just stated, they need not be described here. Yes, 303, now on page 304, for those who have the text and want to read along. And Ty is saying hello on YouTube as well as Facebook. It's not good enough that you're seeing one of me. You're seeing 2 now. Wow. Barbara Murphy, yes, brilliant that you're able to join us. Movanwe's copy is in Bristol. Thank you, Martina. Yeah, just seemed right. And this is the first live stream since his passing, so it seemed right. Yeah, brilliant. Lots of chat going on, which is always a delight to see. 4. The Tall, T.A. Fada L, or Adze of Machta, who was a legendary carpenter, quote, was wont to be put into a fire made of blackthorn or a quicken tree. Quicken tree is the rowan tree, isn't it? Till it was red hot, and the tongue of the accused was passed over it. It would burn the person who had falsehood, but would not burn the person who was innocent. A case of the application of this ordeal is mentioned by O'Curry, no doubt that's Eugene O'Curry, taken from an ancient manuscript, where it is called a druidical or pagan test. I would have thought that, regardless of whether you told a lie or not, that if you passed your tongue over fire, it would burn one way or the other. Maybe I'm wrong, but I wouldn't like to find out. The 3 Leah Mohar, the 3 dark stones. That's number 7. A bucket was filled with bog dust, charcoal, and other kinds of black stuff. Before you say anything, I don't think it means Guinness. And 3 little stones, white, black, and speckled, were put into it, buried deep in the black mass, into which the accused thrust down his hand. If he drew the white stone, he was innocent. If the black one, he was guilty. And if he drew the speckled one, how Irish is this? If he drew the speckled one, he was half guilty. It's like, you know, how do you plead? Guilty or not guilty? Half guilty, Your Honour. Brilliant. The Currafir, the cauldron of truth, was a vessel of silver and gold. Quote, water was heated in it till it was boiling, into which the accused plunged his hand. If he was guilty, the hand was burned. If not, he was uninjured. No halfway between this time. This ordeal seems to have been often used. It is noted in the Shanachas Mór, which I believe, which is a major collection of law tracts. And elsewhere in the Brehon laws, it is mentioned as a means of determining certain cases of doubtful family relationship. Well, the Currafir has been replaced in modern times by DNA tests. Or paternity tests, if you prefer, you know. Sorry, give me one moment. Getting distracted here. Okay. Cranchor, or lot casting. And if he floats, he's a witch. Burner! Burner! Yeah. Teresa Collins, I didn't even see you sneaking in the back. Good to see you, by the way, and thank you for joining us. So crancor comes from cran, C-R-A-N-N, meaning wood, and cur, C-U-R, meaning casting, of which two kinds, 5 and 9, are mentioned. But it will be sufficient to describe the last one here. 5 was the lot casting of Shanachah, and 9 is the old lot of Shen, or Sen, son of Aige. 3 lots, one for the flaw, or local lord, one for the olive, who conducted the trial, and the third for the accused, were thrown into the water. If the accused was guilty, his lot went to the bottom, swimming with the fishes. If innocent, it floated. Ordeal by lot appears to have been oftenest used of any, thankfully, because nobody gets hurt in the effort. Although the stones thing in the Black Mass sounds like nobody's going to get hurt, they're just going to get dirty. Ordeal by lot appears to have been oftenest used of any, but other forms, differing from the one described here, were more usual. It is very often mentioned in the Brehon laws. If a man was accused of wrong by another, and if either demanded trial by lot, then lot was resorted to, and the plan adopted, as described in the book of Achill, shows that here the order was under the auspices of Christianity. 3 lots were put into a vessel or bag, one for guilt, one for innocence, and one for the Trinity. If the accused first draws forth the lot for the Trinity, it is to be put back, and he is to draw again, till he brings forth either of the others, which determines the case. The lot for the Trinity must have been used as a sort of invocation to God for justice, and to add solemnity to the proceeding, otherwise it was useless. If an animal out of some one of several herds did mischief, lots were first cast, as described in another part of the book of Achill, to find out the particular herd, after which the process was repeated if necessary, till the lot fell on a particular animal, the owner of which had then to pay damages assessed by a brehon, who had to take into account several circumstances: the actual amount of the damage, whether it was a first offence, whether the animal was known to be mischievous, implying carelessness in the owner, etc. Similar proceedings were taken to discover the owners of bees that did damage. Lot casting as an ordeal was quite as common among the ancient Irish as it was among the Homeric Greeks. 10. Iarn luchta, luchta's iron, the use of which the quote, Druid luchta learned in Leha, which is either Brittany or Italy, when he went there to improve his knowledge, unquote. The Druids, having first uttered an incantation over a piece of iron, put it in a fire until it was red hot. Tom King, are you listening intently to this? It was then placed in the hand of the accused, and, quote, it would burn him if he had guilt, but it would not injure him if innocent, unquote. Wow, yeah, I think the casting of lots sounds like my preferred way of sorting these things out, to be quite honest with you. Or the picking of stones out of the Black Mass, from the bucket or whatever it was. It sounds much better than having a hot iron placed in your hand, Brendan is saying, Tom King, strike up them sparks, sir. Arisham ik altor. waiting at an altar. The person was to go 9 times round the altar. Doesn't say Jeshel or Tuhal, but we would assume Jeshel. That was in the last episode we did. I believe we were talking about Jeshel and Tuhal, weren't we? Yeah. And that was episode number 20 of the Joyce. That was a number of weeks ago. The person was to go 9 times round the altar and afterwards to drink water over which a druid's incantations had been uttered. Quote, if the man was guilty, the sign of his transgression was made manifest in him by some bodily disfigurement. Ooh. If innocent, he remained unharmed. I suppose we could ask, did they have to check all his bits? Perhaps the part of his body that became disfigured was, private, shall we say. Notwithstanding the mention, moving swiftly on, notwithstanding the mention of the word altar, this ordeal had nothing to do with Christianity. The legend states that it was borrowed from the Israelites by Ki Cainbrahach, Ki of the Fair Judgments, or Kai, C-A-I, Kai possibly. The original Brehon who introduced it into Ireland. And Mr. Hennessy thinks it probable that this pagan circuit was made round a cairn to which the borrowed word altor was applied, because some stone monuments were referred to in more recent centuries in Ireland as Druids' altars. This is rendered all the more likely from the fact that, before the Battle of Cuildrevna, St. Columcille denounces the half-pagan forces arrayed against his people as, quote, the host that march round cairns, alluding, no doubt, to the practice of this pagan ordeal, or to some form of pagan worship. Probably the altar of the ordeal was one of those mentioned by Cormac, and was usually erected on a cairn. This would fully reconcile all the statements. As corroborating the tradition that this rite was borrowed from the Jews, remark its striking similarity, to the Jewish ordeal for a woman suspected of adultery. And that's, if you're really interested, Numbers chapter 5, that she was to drink bitter water over which the priest had heaped curses. If she was guilty, her flesh rotted. If innocent, she remained unharmed. Wow. Trial by ordeal existed in Ireland before the arrival of St. Patrick. But the saint himself, according to the 7th century narrative of Murrachu, made use of the ordeal in his contest with King Leira's druid. Here, however, so far as Patrick was concerned, the proceeding was purely Christian. He called God to his aid, and there was no taint of paganism. The king proposed that the books belonging to each other should be thrown into the water. Quote, put your books into the water, and we will worship him whose book escapes unharmed, unquote. Yes, indeed. And you can read that episode in the tripartite life of St. Patrick. And if you're really interested in that, you can download that. And if you're interested in some of my insights into the mythological nature of some of that material, there's a very long article on the website on mythicalireland.com under the mythology section about the myths and legends of St. Patrick. Patrick agreed, but the druid declined on the grounds stated on page 289. Supra. We had previously obviously read that in more recent times. Oh, yeah. The king's druid, Look at the Mile, declined Patrick's challenge to put the Christian and pagan books in water to ascertain which would come out unharmed. For, having heard of baptism, he declared that Patrick worshipped water as a god, and perhaps had the upper hand. Why didn't he invoke Manannán as the Lord of the Sea? The Tuatha Dé Danann sea deity. The king then proposed fire, but the druid again refused. At last, Patrick himself challenged the druid to another test, to which he agreed, in an evil hour for himself. The druid and young Benon, one of Patrick's followers, exchanged mantles, and a house was hastily built up, one half of dry wood and the other half of green. Into this house both were put, Benin at the dry side, the Druid at the other, according to arrangement, and locked securely in. It was set on fire in presence of all, and while it was burning, Patrick remained praying. When the house had been burned down and the fire had ceased, the spectators made a search and found at the green side the Druid reduced to ashes, with Benin's mantle untouched, and at the other side, Benin all joyful and quite safe, with the Druid's mantle entirely consumed. Wow. Yes, indeed. Just checking the comments. Rexana is joining us from Missouri. So happy I caught this, and we are thrilled to have your company. A very good afternoon to you from the Boyne Valley, where it's exactly 9 p.m. And although the sun is still up above the horizon, it has gone down below the houses here, so it's not shining in directly on the camera anymore. Anyway, you're very welcome, Rexana. Hope you enjoy the rest of our live stream, and please do remember to subscribe and come back again. We live stream at the same time every week. So this is that's the section on Ordeals. So we'll read a couple more sections because we have time. Well, I have time. If you have time, brilliant. That would be even better again. Just looking at the halftime scores. Interesting. Preference for certain numbers. Now, this is something we definitely covered in either one or more live streams before, numbers in Irish mythology, but this is P.W. Joyce's take on the matter. The Irish, like most other ancient nations, had a decided preference for certain numbers and their combinations, which were mixed up with many of their religious and superstitious ceremonies, as well as with the affairs of ordinary life. We may see from the incident related by the 7th century writer Murchu, already noted, and of course he was the hagiographer or the biographer of St. Patrick's life, one of the biographers, that the number 9 was regarded by the Irish pagans with a sort of religious veneration as bringing good luck. Good luck, the luck of the Irish. Interesting. Yeah. Just give me a second now. That when King Lera, with his druids and pagan followers, was setting out from Tara for Slane to arrest St. Patrick, this is on the occasion of Patrick's lighting of the Paschal fire, before the king had lit the sacred fire at Tara, quote, he had 9 chariots joined together, according to the tradition of the gods, unquote, in which he and the others rode. This is a corroboration, so far as that circumstance is concerned, by an unquestionable authority of the accuracy of the tales, in which we find the combination of 9 chariots often mentioned. In the story of the birth of Cuchulainn, the Red Branch Knights yoke 9 chariots to pursue a flock of enchanted birds. And of course, those are the birds that aren't they linked by 9 silver chains in groups of 9 groups of 9? And they're the ones who fly to Brunabonia, where snow overtakes them and they rest for the night, and where it turns out at Sheed and Broga at Newgrange that Lou comes to Dectana and says she's pregnant, and there's a sort of an immaculate conception, so to speak, in Irish mythology. Lou the Ildana had 9 chariots in the Battle of Moitura, and when Queen Maeve rode at the head of her army to invade Ulster, she had a personal equipage of 9 chariots, 2 in front of her, 2 behind, and 2 on each side, with her own in the middle. Wow, that sounds like a sort of almost like a Roman military formation, doesn't it? Just going to draw a quick picture. 2 ahead, 2 behind, 2 on either side. Wow, interesting. Still more frequently and prominently, we find 9 waves mentioned, and with similar mysterious virtues attached to them. Moran, the celebrated judge, son of Carberry Cathead. Carberry Cathead. Some of the names, the sobriquets in medieval and ancient Ireland were just brilliant. Why did they? Can you imagine why they possibly called him Cathead? Yes. Meow. Moran, the celebrated judge, son of Carberry Cathead, was born with a blemish so disfiguring that his father ordered him to be taken away and put to death. How cruel. By the advice of an inhabitant of the Fairy Hills, or the She Mounds, he was taken to the sea and held on the surface till 9 waves rolled over him. The moment the 9th wave had passed, the blemish disappeared. Wow. And if you want to read more about that, Irish Text, Volume 3, page 207. When the Milesians invaded Ireland, the cunning Dedannans induced them to re-embark and go out 9 waves from the shore. As soon as the 9th wave had been crossed, the magical power of the Dedannans was set free to act, so that they raised a tempest that destroyed nearly all the Milesian fleet. Yeah, that's what I'm very familiar with myself. I was telling that story on several occasions over the weekend to my guests who were participants on my tours of the Drogheda mythological murals as part of the Midsummer Festival here in Drogheda. So that story I've been telling repeatedly for years now. And for me, it never gets tired, never gets tiresome. The belief about 9 waves descended to Christian times. During the prevalence of the terrible Yellow Plague in Ireland, Colman O'Clusie, Ferligan, or head professor of I'm stumbling now. Anthony, catch a grip, man. Read properly. During the prevalence of the terrible Yellow Plague in Ireland, Colman O'Clusie, Ferligan, or head professor of St. Finbarr's School in Cork, fled overseas AD 664 with 50 of his pupils to a certain island, so as to place 9 waves between him and the mainland. For the learned say, as the old document goes on, quote, that pestilence does not make its way farther than 9 waves. Wow, interesting. AD 664 is interesting. That's a few years before the Synod of Whitby, which is very important in the story of the development of Christianity in Ireland. Just before embarking, he composed as an invocation for protection against the terrible mortality a hymn which is still extant and which has been published by the Reverend Dr. Todd in the Book of Hymns. The numbers 3 and 7 are also much in evidence in Irish writings, but the full discussion of this subject would demand more space than I can afford. See, on this whole subject, this is a footnote, de Jubainville, La Civile des Celtes, pages 256 to 284, and for a full discussion on the Celtic preference for the number 9, see Rees, Hibernian Lectures, Lecture IV, which is Lecture 4. So 3, 7, and 9. Roxana tells us, Anthony, your faithful follower, Elaine Dentlingenfelter, who is a brilliant proponent of not just Mythical Ireland, but all things Ireland, introduced me to the beautiful Boyne Valley, and I was privileged to tour inside Newgrange on my 3rd trip to Ireland. Fantastic stuff. I hope that was a very special experience for you, Roxana. I'm sure it was. And I've been inside hundreds of times, and it never, ever, ever gets boring or dull or uninteresting. It's always magical. And one more. What time are we on? Yeah, we've time for more. This is the one that's called, ready, prepare yourselves. It's called The Evil Eye. From various passages in some very old documents, it may be inferred that the belief in the evil eye was prevalent in Ireland in old times. Mark Gordon, I have to read this comment. I was researching the 9 waves and found in Irish mythology the 9th wave is a mystical concept that has been passed down through the ages as a powerful and foreboding force. This legendary wave is said to be the final wave of a series of 9 waves that strike the shore, and it holds within it the power to carry away the souls of the dead. From, I presume you're going to follow up with the source for that. Brilliant stuff, fascinating. There are 7 yews surrounding the ancient Celtic burial ground where our local church now stands. Wow, fantastic. Cathead as a sphinx, says Monica Regley. I'm not sure if we said hello to you earlier, Monica. Hello, and yeah, good evening to you. Yeah, that's fascinating. The ninth wave. Thus, Cormac's glossary, page 107, Anthony, gives a fanciful derivation of the common verb milled, M-I-L-L-E-D, which means injuring, which is the same as a malign glance of the eye. And in a vision of the Macongline, the Flachleag, or wizard doctor, says to his patient who was looking very ill, Rotarail sul na at bendach. An eye that sains has not regarded thee, i.e., an unwholesome or evil eye has looked upon thee. Wow. The great Fomorian champion, and it was inevitable that he would get a mention, Balor of the mighty blows, had a tremendous evil eye called Birach Derk, meaning speary eye, from bir, a spear. And that same word, if you remember me writing about this certainly on the website and perhaps in the revised edition of Mythical Ireland or in the Finn monograph, I think it's the revised edition of Mythical Ireland, about how Midger's eye had been knocked out by a sprig of holly. And I had found, of course, the word was bir, and that means a spear. It also does mean a sprig, but it's much more likely that his eye was knocked out by a spear than a sprig. It was never opened except on the field of battle. This is Balor's baleful eye. And it always took 4 men with hooks to raise the lid. One baleful glance was enough to enfeeble a whole army of his enemies, so as that a few brave men could put them to flight. The tale of the second battle of Moytura, which we have mentioned on numerous occasions, relates how he came by his evil eye. When he was a boy, his father's druids used to concoct their spells in a room carefully closed, uch fullacht dreachta, i.e. cooking sorcery. Oh, I like that. Gordon Ramsay, eat your heart out. Yeah, never mind, what's it called? Ready, steady, cook or anything like that. I like the whole idea of cooking sorcery. It's what I do in the kitchen. I burn everything. If anybody was to eat anything I cooked, they'd be half poisoned. Over a fire in a cauldron from some horrible ingredients, a bit like Shakespeare's witches. The boy, curious to know what the druids were at, climbed up and peeped through an opening when a whiff of foul steam from the cauldron blew into his eye and communicated to it all the baleful influence of the hellish mixture. But this eye, powerful as it was not proof against the tathlum, or sling ball, of his grandson, Lugh of the Long Arms. At the second battle of Moytura, Balor was present, prepared to use his eye on the Daidanan army. But Lugh, who was on the side of the Daidanans, kept on the watch, and the moment the lid of the Cyclopean eye was raised, and before the glare had time to work bale, he let fly this hard ball from his sling, which struck the open eye with such force as to go through the eye, brain, and skull. These observations may be brought to a close by the remark that the superstition of the evil eye has remained among our people, as among others, down to this day. Now, before we finish, allow me to grab a copy of Island of the Setting Sun and read briefly about a little bit more about the Tathlum. Actually, I don't need to get it physically. I have a PDF copy. One moment, please. Do not adjust your sets. This is the BBC. No, it's not. It's the Orchie, as the posh ones say. Orchie. Let me just grab this for a second and search. I just want to read a little bit about the Tathlum, this lethal weapon of Lugh that he used to defeat his own grandfather, Balor of the Evil Eye. Balor of the baleful, or the Balor of the stout blows. 240 and 268. Let me just go back here now. One moment, please. So remember earlier we said, so 9 was a major important number, 7 and 3. Wait to hear this. So this is from Island of the Setting Sun, In Search of Ireland's Ancient Astronomers. My first book, written in conjunction with the aforementioned very good friend and scholar and colleague Richard Moore, and inspired greatly by the late Martin Brennan and Jack Roberts. If you want your own signed copy, I'm just going to share a link where you can order a signed copy of Island of the Setting Sun. I'm going to read this from, I believe it's chapter 11 of Island of the Setting Sun. So remember the sacred numbers 9, 7, and 3. Sorry. In the tale of the Second Battle of Moytura, a great war took place between the Tuatha Dé Danann and the Fomorians. During this apocalyptic battle, Lu confronted Balor, as we've been just reading in Joyce's work. The giant, baleful, poisonous eye of Balor was opened so, quote, that I may see the babbler who is conversing with me, unquote. When Balor's eye was exposed, Lu, quote, cast a slingstone at him, which carried the eye through his head while his own army looked on, unquote. The story relates how the slingstone, quote, fell on the host of the Fomorians, unquote, killing 27 of them. 27, or thrice 9, as it is given in the myth. So that's 2 of the sacred numbers, 3 and 9. 3 and 9, yes, Anthony, is a lunar number, which we discussed in previous chapters. It takes 27 days for the moon to return to the same place in the sky. We call that a sidereal or a tropical month. There's very, very, very little difference, only seconds between them. Not the sort of thing that you would notice in Neolithic observational astronomy. Clearly, the Second Battle of Moytura is a figurative account of a sky phenomenon, most likely an eclipse of the sun. Lu cast his slingstone, the moon, this is what I propose, at Balor, the sun. Certainly the baleful or malevolent aspect of the sun. The narrative relates how the fatal blow was delivered by Lu just as he and Balor met, indicating the probability that the solar eclipse happened above Orion, because I propose that Lu is the constellation Orion. That Lu is Orion is further hinted at in the build-up to the final meeting of grandfather and grandson. The text describes how, quote, Lu escaped from his guardians with his charioteer, so that it was he who was in front of the hosts of the Tuatha Dé, unquote. In the sky, the constellation Orion takes the form of a giant warrior-like figure, often represented with one hand stretched out, carrying a shield or weapon, and the other hand raised above his head, immersed in the Milky Way. This is Lu, with his upraised arm, firing off slingstones along the ecliptic. Above Orion is the constellation Auriga, a star grouping almost completely contained within the band of the Milky Way. Auriga represents the charioteer, while the hosts of the Tuatha Dé could symbolize the multitude of stars of the Milky Way. A description of the weapon with which Lu vanquishes Balor reveals that it is a magic stone known as the Tathlum, which means concrete ball. Such a weapon was, according to ancient tales, made out of the brains of dead enemies hardened with lime. Nasty stuff. This is like, who composed these myths in prehistory? The prehistoric Irish equivalent of Stephen King. Cast by Lu is the defeat of Balor with the brain ball, cast by Lu, is remembered in an ancient poem, of which here are the first and last stanzas. A tathlum, heavy, fiery, firm, which the Tuatha Dé Danann had with them, it was that broke the fierce Balor's eye of old in the battle of the great armies. To the hero Lu was given this concrete ball, no soft missile. In Moytura of shrieking wails, from his hand he threw the Tathlum. And I then explain how the only object traveling along the ecliptic above the elevated arm of Orion that fits the description of the Tathlum is the moon. its darker seas representing the brains, the brighter areas, the cement or lime. The tathlum is another of the native concepts involving the moon, others portraying it as the hag or veiled woman and the magical illuminated cow. Prehistoric Stephen King. Yeah, I know, right? It's funny, but it's like somebody had kind of fairly fucking serious nightmares back in the old days when people, basically came up with these kind of very, very weird concepts, Anyway, thank you to the two people who have made pledges towards the Fornox book in the time we've been live streaming. Thank you very much. I'm so grateful. Just a reminder, I'll just paste that link again. If you want to support Mythical Ireland, as always, please do consider becoming a patron. The address is scrolling along the bottom of the screen. At the moment, I'm sharing page by page the draft typescript of the biggest book I've ever written, which I hope to publish before winter solstice this year. I say hope because I was supposed to publish the Fornox monograph by spring equinox this year, but that didn't happen because of the various delays. And that is now very, very close to publication. I just need a few days between tours and other things to sit here and just get it finished and send it to print. I'll have to make a note of that moon significance, lol, says Caitlin Moon. What an amazingly brilliant surname. Just especially if you're even remotely interested in astronomy. What a brilliant name, what do you do? Well, I'm a lunar astronomer. What's your name? Moon. Yeah. To which the person says, yeah, likely story. And you say, no, honestly, it is. It's Moon. Debbie Sheehy remembers reading that Conor McNessa was also gravely injured by a brain ball from which he died a few years later. Yes, it was lodged in his head, and he couldn't remove it because he would die. And the story, of course, which you almost know was written down by a Christian scribe. The story claims that Conor heard about the cruel death of Jesus Christ, and that he went out into the forest and wept and screamed so loudly at this news that the brain ball dislodged from his skull and he fell dead. Caitlin tells us, I often get asked, where does your last name come from? To which the answer is, my dad. A brilliant answer. Yes, fabulously brilliant. But Lou Orion is looking at Taurus in the night sky. Looking at, yeah. Mick, I'm not quite getting the point, but perhaps just, maybe I'm missing something. And the sun and moon's movement through the ecliptic is the reverse of that. It's like he's throwing it backwards. Yeah, fair enough. I'm sure, says Mavanwe, a few magic mushrooms must have been involved somewhere in the more vivid tales. Remember, did you ever hear the fesh? Not the fesh charo, the Tara fesh, the bull feast. I've mentioned it in live streams before, where the chief druid of Tara would eat the flesh of a bull and sleep in its hide, and whatever he dreamt of had to be carefully recorded. I bet you they had some weird feckin' dreams, Thank you, Elaine. I'm glad that you enjoyed this episode. Keep cool. Get the fans out all around you, and some ice and some nice cold drinks. Love the references to this story in astronomy, says Debbie. But if you love that, you will love Island of the Setting Sun in search of Ireland's ancient astronomers, I can promise you. And very well remembered, Debbie, about Conor McNessa and the brain ball, by the way. Brilliant. Brendan, on the same subject of what the ancients might have been taking, he's wondering what they were smoking. There was mention of an island adventure last year. I'm still keen. Yes, as am I. And I'm saying but, I don't want to rule it out, but it would take some organising and would take a serious financial commitment because, we would be organising bus and boat tickets. I'd be happy to bring you out to Dunvalore on Tory Island, and this is a nice time of year to go. Finding the time to do it. Yeah, leave it with me though. that idea is there. It's not going away. It just requires me to put more time and energy into planning it. We still know to go on that trip to Tory. Yes, exactly. That's the one. Transmission will recommence presently. What was that about? Oh, yeah. And now for something completely different. Ah, yes, the story of Balor, says Mavano. This is from a little short while ago. Yes, says Anne McCallum, 9, 3x3, thrice 3, extremely important, and thrice 7, 3x3 as well. Yes, indeed. Brilliant. Field trip. I'm not mentioning the details just yet, but a very, very special Mythical Ireland tour is coming up in July, which will involve me collaborating with somebody else and leading a joint tour. Somebody I haven't collaborated with before. So watch out for announcements of that in the week coming. Right, Anthony, we'll pester you. Eventually, it'll get through, you know. Hi, Jacqueline. Thank you for a great episode as usual. Thank you for your lovely photo of myself and Jack, which I will treasure. This has been interesting. Your comments, especially since you are native born, make it so much more valuable from your experience. Thank you, Lexi. I'm glad that you enjoyed it. And Lexi also agreeing with Mavanwe's suggestion. Mavanwe, wear him down, says Nora. Yeah. Perhaps we won't need to take a boat. Perhaps we'll, following Nora's lead, we'll just swim across the sea from the mainland to the island. Oh, wait. It takes an hour by boat. How long do you think it would take by sea? I'm not sure what the distance is. It's something like 9 or 10 miles, I think. Whatever that is in kilometers, it's probably about 15 kilometers. I could be wrong about that, but it's. I think it's. I've made the boat trip, so it was about an hour. And there are videos of that on my YouTube channel. If you search the YouTube channel for Tory Island, especially the return trip, the trip out was, the sea was flat calm. The Atlantic was flat calm, like a mill pond, as they say. But the ferry home was, shall we say, a little bit interesting. I'll leave you with this. I'll share this for you now. You can watch that in your own time. It's a short video. It's only over a minute long, showing our boat bobbing up and down as we leave. Well, Tory is in the distance. Yeah, fun and games. We've had our sea legs for a while, I believe, us Irish, because we've been traveling to and from Ireland for a long, long time. Anyway, thank you all for a wonderful interaction, as always. You're a wonderful, super bunch of people. And one final word to Jack Roberts, and I say, may your name remain in lights, written across the sky and in stone for many, many a generation into the future. Thank you for your work and scholarship and your dedication to the unraveling and the revelations of the super and wonderful and multifaceted Irish history and prehistory. Ad Astral Music, who I hadn't said hello to earlier on, is saying good night. Thank you. And Lucas Sicardi, who I didn't know was here, Buena Serata. I see Italy are currently 1-0 down in the Euros. So you better tell them to get the skates on. Anyway, thank you all. Greetings of St. John's Day and the period of the summer solstice. We'll hopefully see you. Leslie, yes, of course. Leslie was on the Murals tour yesterday and learned so much. Really enjoyed, but still want to know the whole story about Etain. Yes, indeed, I'm sure. Do I even have the full version of it on my website? That's a good question. It's on. We did several live streams about it. So you watching on YouTube or Facebook? Sorry, you're watching on Facebook. But if you go to Mythical Ireland's YouTube channel and search it, you'll find that we did the Wooing of Etain over 2 or 3 episodes. I think that was in 2020 during the lockdowns. Yeah, we did 3. So if you use the search feature, I'll share directly the link to the first one. Of course, things have changed a bit since the early live streams. I was using a different camera and different lighting, and the library looked a bit different in the background. So the quality's not as good, but you'll enjoy it all the same. So the whole story can be heard in a series of 3 episodes that we did back in 2020. Starting with episode number 21. We're now on 283. Amazing stuff. Thanks, Tom. And great to catch up with you yesterday evening after your fabulous time in Drogheda. Yes, indeed, we did, Caitlin. Well remembered. Mavani's getting excited for the trip now. She must have watched the boat video. Some of you will be completely turned off by that, but I didn't mind it. I suppose on a longer journey, I might, I don't know, I might get seasick, but on a short journey, actually, kind of enjoyed that. I just kind of held on and just swayed I rocked with the boat. I tried to move my legs so that I remained fairly level with the horizon, and I think that helped, you know. Anyway, a very good night to all of you. It's 9:30. It's been a great honor and a pleasure and a delight to have you, as always, in the library. And we'll see you next week. If not, in the interim, I did a live stream the other day on my way to RTE for the Claire Burns show. And I'll be back, hopefully, on the Claire Burns show in the next couple of weeks, talking about mythology again. So listen out for that, and watch the whatchamacallit, the social media. Anyway, will we go beyond the ninth wave? Good question, Lexi. Good question. Very good question. Let's find out. Ecoa, Culasov, Slán go fól agus tóg go bogé. Take it easy, everyone. We'll see you soon.